Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1777 and today's date is January 28th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Trump is hitting at the heart of the central bank and deep state, one piece at a time. Now, before I get started, I wanted to talk about Trump. You might have heard in the news that President Trump is withdrawing 2,000 of our boys and girls out of Syria. Just a while ago, he took an 11-hour flight in darkness and total secrecy to go out to Iraq with First Lady to visit the troops there. He said, "We're no longer the sucker, folks," was his storming declaration. With President Trump, you get what you see, and that's what we love about him. He delivers. So does Noble Gold. They put together this stunning solid silver coin to underline that great job he's doing, with highlights of his achievement to date and a portrait on the front. Any Trump supporter would be crazy about one of these. Go to TrumpCoin2020.com and use the code X22 to get free shipping. This is a $6.50 savings. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, watching this plan unfold, we need to remember something very important, that this is not just about a 4-year election. I mean, Q has told us this. This is about resetting everything, removing the criminals, the treasonous traitors, getting rid of the central bank, and there's a lot to do. Can everything be done all at once? Absolutely not. It's completely impossible. The deep state, the central bank, they are deep within our system, and it's going to take quite a while to get most of them out. And we can see that everything is progressing the way the plan was laid out. And they're taking one piece at a time, attacking the mainstream media, attacking the central bank, continually tweeting out about these treasonous traitors, about the crimes, about spying, continually doing this over and over and over again, having people resign, having people fired, and continually doing this over and over again. Think about how much Trump has accomplished within the 2 years. And I'm not talking about the economy and things like that, but getting rid of the deep state, bringing attention to the central bank, bringing attention to almost everything, the World Trade Organization, these terrible trade deals, these globalist plans, speaking out about globalism. Think about everything that has been done, and he's doing it one piece at a time. And we can see that he is getting the United States prepared for this major transition. Now, he's not going to mention a transition to the country. And he's not going to mention that we're going to be getting rid of the central bank to the world, because you can't let the enemy know what you're up to. You can't let them know what your plans are. And also, if they came out and then they actually said this, there'd be panic all over the place. And with the economy, you don't want people to panic, because that would be a complete and utter disaster. They need to take this step by step, and they have to be very careful in what they do. But when we look back in time, we'll be able to see the entire plan. And I'm not just talking about putting people into jail. I'm talking about how they were able to transition a economy that was enslaved by a central bank and transition it into a working, viable economy that is completely free, where people prosper. Remember, for a long time, we've been taught and we've been brainwashed to think that this is how the economy was supposed to be. This is how it is. You have poor people, you have debt, you have these interest payments. This is how the market works. The Fed is in control. When we get rid of all of this, everything is going to change. And we're starting to see change already. And this is what the deep state and the central banks, this is what they're so afraid of. They're afraid of what they're watching. Why do you think the central bank is out there worried about their independence? Why do you think they're worried about the next financial crisis? Have you ever heard of a central bank come out and say, we're worried about the next financial crisis, we're hoping the Fed will step in, but because of political rage, because of the control of Trump, we're a little bit nervous in what's going to happen next? A central bank would never come out and say that. They're the ones who are always driving the collapses. Guess what? They're not in the driver's seat anymore. Now, the central banks are taking this to the next level. Out in the UK, they are putting the fear factor to 10 and above. The Guardian wrote this article about if there is no deal, the UK is going to be in a 30-year recession. So let me just read a little bit here. The Guardian writer, Amelia Hill, cites alleged experts in her nonsensical appraisal. UK cannot simply trade on World Trade Organization terms after no-deal Brexit. The UK will be unable to have frictionless, tariff-free trade under World Trade Organization rules for up to 7 years in the event of a non-deal Brexit, according to two leading European Union law specialists. The ensuing chaos could double food prices and plunge Britain into a recession that could last up to 30 years. Claim that lawyers who acted for Gina Miller in this historic case that forced the government to seek Parliament's approval to leave the EU. No deal means leaving with nothing. The anticipated recession will be worse than the 1930s, let alone 2008. It is impossible to say how long it would go for. Some economists say 10 years. Others say the effects could be felt for 20 or even 30 years. Even ardent Brexiters agree it could be decades. Now, the idea of a 30-year recession wins the blue ribbon for the dumbest statement ever about the Brexit. Hill deserves a blue ribbon herself for producing an absurd article full of clearly overhyped nonsense. What they're doing is they're scaring the people and scaring the government into doing what they want. You know what the central bank is really worried about? If there is no deal and the UK comes out of this and they prosper and everything works in their favor, and let's say they don't use the World Trade Organization. Ooh, that's an idea. What happens if they have bilateral trade agreements with other countries? China's doing it. The US is doing it. Why not the UK? Now, what happens if the UK prospers? What happens at that point? This is what the central bank is most afraid of. A country prospering without them, because that will show every single other country, well, wait a minute, look how well they're doing without the central bank. You see why they don't want them to leave? This is what they're afraid of, because they know what's going to happen. They know they will do a lot better without the central bank than with a central bank. Now, this is not fully without a central bank, but they will do a lot better without the EU dictating to them on what to do. Now, if we got rid of the central bank altogether, whoa, happy days are here again. And that's what Trump and the Patriots are pushing for. This is why the central banks do not like countries that don't have a central bank installed that they can control. Because if there's any country that does very, very well without a central bank and prospers, well, the other countries are going to say, we don't need the central bank then. We want what they have. Look how they're doing. Now, it looks like May's going to hold a second Brexit deal vote on February 14th. We'll have to see how that goes. Now, here in the United States, we can see the holiday season wasn't as great as everyone was saying. Now, this has nothing to do with Trump, the tariffs, or anything like this. We were on this trajectory from the beginning. This is why we've been tracking everything. Not to predict, not to have a crystal ball, but to show how the central bank, how the mainstream media lies about how the economy is really doing. Now, what's very interesting during this holiday season, we know the FICO scores changed. That meant more people got credit cards. That meant their credit limits moved up. And coming from comparecards.com, they reported that nearly 3 in 10 Americans applied for a store credit card during the 2018 holiday season. Now, why do you think they did that? Were they using their cash? No, they were using credit to purchase their items. Now, again, what happens when you don't pay it off all at once? Well, the store credit cards are around 25% interest. That is going to be a complete and utter disaster for the people. And we cannot stay in this system. Trump knows it, the patriots know it, and this is why it's all part of the plan to move us out of this system. Now, they just can't snap their fingers and move us out. It's very, very different from the time of Andrew Jackson. Think about what the central banks have done. They've weaved their tentacles into everything. Trade. They went outside of the U.S. with the IMF, the biz. Installed central banks in almost every single country. Q has already given us a list. Q has already told us that in all these countries, there are private Western central banks, and they don't abide by the country's laws. Same thing with the Federal Reserve here. Trump tweeted out something very interesting. Tariffs on the dumping of steel in the United States have totally revived our steel industry. New and expanded plants are happening all over the U.S. We have not only saved this important industry, but created many jobs. Also, billions paid to our treasury. A big win for the U.S. Trump is in the process of bringing back manufacturing, bringing back all of this to the United States. And when he says billions paid to the treasury, we're going to need this when we come off the central bank system. Why? Because the Treasury will not be able to borrow anymore from the central bank. We're going to need billions coming from the people into the government. And you have to restructure everything. And this is why Q has told us there's going to be a restructuring of the central bank, restructuring of how we do business here in the United States. This is the main thing the Fed, the central banks, the Rothschilds hate. They don't want to see a country prosper. They destroy countries over time. That's their business. Trump is doing everything they hate. And when they see him winning, they hate it more. And when they see manufacturing coming back, they can't stand it. And when they see the people can be independent without a central bank, well, this is when they go a little nuts. This is when they push certain events. But once again, the central bank, they don't control the narrative. The central bank, they're not in control of this. Trump and the Patriots are. They're completely exposed. Their plan went out the window. They're going to try to regroup in 2020. It's not going to work. They're holding on right now. They don't want to show the world that their economy imploded and it's their fault. This is their worst nightmare come true. And with Trump and the Patriots, with everything that they're doing, every time they create a bilateral trade agreement, every time they bring back manufacturing, every time they create jobs, every time they deregulate, every time they do this and speak out against globalism, they speak out against the World Trade Organization, they speak out against the central bank. The central bank is exposed, the globalists are exposed, the deep state is exposed every single time. There's going to come a point where Trump and the Patriots have complete control. Once they have complete control, once they brought back what they needed to bring back in the United States and they feel that we're secure enough for this transition, this is when it will all begin. And the central banks, they will not be able to fight it. They are chipping away at all of this one piece at a time. And before you know it, everything the deep state, the central banks have done over the many years, there's nothing there anymore. And they can't do anything about it. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.